So it looks like things could be getting more interesting when it comes to exactly how the Nintendo Switch 2 handles its resources with the game chat and the RAM and the video chat that it has and the game share and other features, because it was, I would say, rumored or talked about with Digital Foundry that there's going to be about 9 gigabytes of RAM for Nintendo Switch 2 games and about 3 gigabytes reserved for the OS. And people were wondering, man, 3 gigabytes for the OS, that's significantly more than like the 0.8 or whatever that was reserved for the Nintendo Switch 1. It wasn't even a full gigabyte of RAM, but we did get a new interesting discussion here from a developer that talked about how in the future the Nintendo Switch 2 could actually use less of its resources, less of a core for the OS and the features there, and more towards the game. So potentially 10 gigabytes for games and about 2 gigabytes and 1 core for the OS. Now, just to give you guys an example, the Nintendo Switch 2 does have more usable RAM than even the Xbox Series S, obviously the PlayStation 4, PlayStation 4 Pro, but not more than the PlayStation 5 or the Xbox Series X. Now let's get into the Family Boards forum member, Mr. Matt, again, which we've covered him before on the channel. He is a known developer who has worked in the game industry and has provided some insights on what could be happening here with the Nintendo Switch 2 when it comes to the console resources, such as the CPU cores and the RAM that are now available for developers at this point. But according to him, the goal is to actually reduce the amount of resources that the system uses reserved for the OS to 1 CPU and 2 gigabytes of RAM, which would allow developers to squeeze just a little bit more out of the Nintendo Switch 2 in the future. So it's something that I think that would definitely be good for the future games. Now, if you look at what's happening right now with the Nintendo Switch 2, you look at Cyberpunk 2077, look how good that looks for a hybrid type of platform. It's actually on par or outperforming some of the stuff that we see from console counterparts, depending on what system you're talking about and depending on kind of what shots you get. Obviously, frame rate not going to be as good as the higher powered systems like the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X or the PlayStation 5. Obviously, high-end PCs, that's going to be the best place to play it. But when it comes to an actual hybrid, it's not doing so bad. And if you look at Nintendo's games, it's just a night and day difference from what they're able to do from the jump, having 60 frames per second, having games that look very beautiful, Mario Kart World, having 24 racers on screen, 60 frames, open world, in addition to a game like Donkey Kong Bonanza being a huge open-ended areas and complete destruction with particle effects flying everywhere. That's also going to be running good too. Plus all the backwards compatibility stuff, Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, Breath of the Wild. It's shaping up to be a system that, despite some of the reserved OS features, even at the beginning overall with game chat and game share and all of that, it's still going to have a good amount of resources left to make these games, and it could even get better in the future. And also, fellow content creator, YouTuber DocTray81 actually talked about this before Mr. Matt Inside even talked about it, because that's kind of how a lot of systems operate, to where you can get more performance out of it as you get more familiar with the system and what it can do and the development, that you can actually lower the amount of power that the OS will use and increase the system resources. So this is definitely something to look out for, to where right now it just seems, right, just based off of the rumors and even just what Digital Foundry said, it's 9 gigabytes with 3 reserved for the OS. That could increase to 10 for games and about 2 for the OS, as the Nintendo Switch 2 has 12 gigabytes of RAM. So what do you guys think about potentially the system resources in games being able to use more in the future? Let me know in the comment section. But before we get into the next topic, please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you are someone new, and click that notification bell to get my vids as soon as they drop, as we're dropping all sorts of cool Nintendo Switch 2 content leading up to the launch. And trust me guys, I've got a huge surprise, not only in a giveaway that we're going to be doing on the channel, but also some other pretty interesting things that's going to be going down. So you're going to want to subscribe. All right, so let's go and get into the next topic here. Let's start off with a huge potential leak, but more like a fail if you're looking at it from this person's perspective, because somebody appears to have gotten a full Nintendo Switch 2 retail unit, but they can't use it. It doesn't function without the day one update on June 5th. This was posted on Reddit. You guys are seeing the video. Somebody commented below on Reddit, says, "More video please." And the person says, "Nintendo, lock the Switch 2. It needs update to function, so I'm waiting for June 5th to unlock it." And the other person says, "WTF, LOL, can you do a deep unboxing?" So There you go on that, guys. So there's been a little bit of confusion on this and a little bit of anger that I've seen, and I can understand it. It's a double-edged sword overall. One, you definitely obviously want to see if someone can test the stuff early and see what's going on with the backwards compatibility and see what's going on there from a content creation standpoint. I completely understand that, to see what's going on and to be more informed heading into the launch. So I'm definitely not here to sit there and say that nobody can be upset about that. We don't want to be able to have to download an update to use my system. Like, I want to be able to just take the system, put in a game, and play it. And unfortunately, for a lot of systems in terms of the modern age, it doesn't do that. Now with this system, obviously they're making it to where you can't use the functions like backwards compatibility or maybe even some of the games. Now they didn't test a Nintendo Switch 2 game, and obviously some of the features that you need to actually see the system operate would be through an update or even like a system transfer. So a lot of these things probably aren't even on there, so there's nothing really to test at all but Switch 1 games. But remember, the backwards compatibility, it's emulation. It's not straight up direct backwards compatibility like the Wii to the Wii U or like the GameCube to the Wii, where they just take the previous system and shove it into the new system, or even the Nintendo DS to the 3DS. It's not like that. They're emulating things with a little bit of hardware added on top as well, which is why they have to do testing for backwards compatibility. And a lot of these Nintendo Switch 1 games are probably going to run smoother and better without a free update from Nintendo or a patch or something, because it is going to be emulated on stronger hardware. So that needs an update too. So I can understand people wanting to get the test out there or just not wanting to have to update their system in order to play it. I did see some people concerned about the potential future of preservation or the future of games and how people won't be able to play if you don't have an internet connection. And the one thing that I'd say about that is that probably in the future, the other systems are going to come with the firmware already installed on there, are going to come with the updates already on there. I don't think that if you buy Nintendo Switch OLED now at this point, it's the vanilla version of the Switch 1 that released back in 2017 when it comes to firmware and all of that. I'm pretty sure that they update it as the new systems kind of come along and the process gets put into the box before it's shipped off and everything like that. So I'm pretty sure that's not going to be an issue in the future. I think it's just done right now at this point to prevent people from doing the leaks or potentially prevent people from the clout chasing and showing off different things before and then breaking the actual street date of it. I think that's essentially that's where Nintendo's coming from. So once again, there are some people who don't want to have all that beforehand. There are some people who do. So once again, double-edged sword at this point. I kind of see both sides overall. So what do you guys think? You can let me know in the comment section. But now we're going to move on to another topic here, and Nintendo has actually showed off just a bit of new footage when it comes to various different Nintendo Switch 1 games running on Nintendo Switch 2. It seems, based off of a recent Nintendo Switch Online trailer that they showed off in Japan, or more like just like an advertisement for that Nintendo Switch 2, because you see games in there like Mario Kart World, you also see Drag Cross Drive, but then they mix it in there with other games as well, and they talk about the features like game chat and everything. So it seems, once again, seems like they're taking Nintendo Switch 1 games and actually playing them on a Nintendo Switch 2. Now remember, Splatoon 3 and Animal Crossing, these games don't have Nintendo Switch 2 updates at this point, so they could just be running, and some people think maybe do they run smoother, do they run better, whatever the case is, but it is emulation, so maybe it will look a little bit smoother, maybe it will look and run a little bit better. But a lot of these games are 60 frames per second anyway, with the exception of Animal Crossing. Animal Crossing is 30, but there's nothing in here that shows that it bumps it up to 60 or anything like that. But yeah, absolutely, I could see something like Splatoon looking a little bit sharper, looking a little bit better on the Nintendo Switch 2 based off what we talked about. But it could be absolutely nothing, could be absolutely nothing at all based off of this new trailer here. But I'm excited to test out some of the older games. I think it'd be pretty cool if we got an update for Splatoon 3 to where you can run it at 120 frames per second. If they can get that for a multiplayer shooting game, and heck, even Super Smash Bros., if they can get that 120, which I don't think that they're going to, but I think it'd be pretty cool if they did do some cool updates for Super Smash Bros. And Splatoon. A lot of these games already run really good on Nintendo Switch 1, but it'd just be nice, like I said, to kind of get them on Switch 2 with a little bit extra to look forward to, just like we have for Mario Odyssey and some of the other free update games that are coming on day one for the Nintendo Switch 2. So what do you guys think when it comes to this as well? Are you excited to check out your Nintendo Switch 1 games or your Nintendo Switch 2? And we're getting so much closer to the release of the Nintendo Switch 2 with some of these games. What's the first title that you guys are going to be playing on the system? let me know in the comment section below as well. But now we're gonna move on to the next topic here, and it's going to be Nintendo's new marketing blitz for the Nintendo Switch 2. We have the Nintendo Switch 2 Summer Gaming Events at Best Buy, and it's starting fairly soon here, June 7th. So Best Buy parking lots will be hosting game truck theaters on Saturdays throughout the summer. During these events, participating Best Buy stores will have limited Nintendo Switch 2 inventory for purchase. So if you can't get one right away at launch, it'll be just that weekend. Yeah, June 7th, that weekend, starting out in California, Florida, Georgia, New York, and Frisco, Texas. So I don't really have one super close to me here in California, but I wouldn't go anyway. I'm getting my Nintendo Switch on launch day for the most part. I'm getting it then. But also on Saturday, June 4th, you have more places in California. So you have Downey, California, Palmdale, Roseville. You also have St. John's, Florida. You have Illinois, South Bend, Indiana, Gateway, Brooklyn, New York, Philadelphia in Pennsylvania, Knoxville, Tennessee, Arlington, Texas, and Cedar Park, Texas as well. Then on Saturday, June 21st, you've got Camelback, Arizona, Culver City, California, El Cajon, California, Modesto, California. Oh my goodness, they're making the move to Modesto. That's up near Fresno. So I went to school in Fresno State. So that's so interesting that they're actually going to Modesto. That's funny. All right, Gainesville, Florida, Burbank, Illinois, Greenwood, Indiana, Union, New Jersey, Salem, Oregon, and Springville, Virginia. So a lot of different places here. Not really sure how people feel about some of the places. There's definitely a gap when it comes to some of the states here, though. They're definitely not going to stuff like Idaho, or they're not going to North Dakota or South Dakota, or places like that as well. I don't think they're going to Delaware, or they're going to certain places like North Carolina or South Carolina. I don't see any of that on here. And all the times are from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. in their time zone. So interesting on that with this game truck thing. It's probably going to be pretty hot, starting to be summer overall here in California. So pack the water and ice if you're going to go out there to check out that. So yeah, it's start getting kind of hot overall. It's definitely going to start being hotter overall. But yeah, I think that's pretty cool. Like, you want to make sure that you get the Nintendo Switch 2 in the consumer's hands, right? You got a lot of people obviously upset online. There's so much backlash when it comes to some of the stuff, but usually that's just kind of an echo chamber and a small amount of the actual people that are going to go out there and buy the system. So having these type of game trucks and actually having the different games come out, and marketing and advertisement is so important overall. Now, don't get me wrong. There's definitely legitimate things to talk about, legitimate things to complain about, which I've done it on this channel multiple times as well, live streams, whatever the case is. But honestly, man, I'm just super hyped to finally get the system. Then of course, some of the other things, we can talk about that as it goes along. But it's been 8 years. Everyone's been waiting for this new system. We're pretty much getting the system that people wanted when it comes to what they're doing from a graphical perspective and a backwards compatibility perspective overall. I honestly didn't expect Nintendo to do game updates and all that type of stuff like that. I thought it'd be the same old backwards compatibility that they've had before, and it's not that. They're also doing updates and different stuff. These are things that they would usually do like in a really weird type of way overall, like the new play control or stuff like that. It wouldn't actually be significantly better, but now we actually have some of the updates and everything. So it's stuff that I've been wanting and that I've been asking for the generation of the Nintendo Switch 1. Not perfect with Switch 2, but I think at the end of the day, people are going to really, really vibe with this system and enjoy the games that are coming out, because Nintendo makes very unique games that other developers just don't make. So if you want to be able to play Mario, Zelda, Pokemon, Kirby, all the different stuff that comes out, Super Smash Brothers, Metroid, all the different stuff, you're going to have to pick up Nintendo Switch 2, which I do think there's going to be a lot of people that do that, and of course get a chance to play more of it if you're not sold at this point, and of course buy it because they're going to have some stock as well. So what do you guys think about this overall? But what do you guys think about everything we talked about here? Let me know in the comment section below. All right guys, that's going to wrap it up for this video. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, click that notification bell, and check out my other Nintendo Switch 2 RPG content and more right here on screen. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you guys for the next one. Peace.